It was supposed to be another interview, one of those cheerful, nostalgic press appearances celebrating the anniversary of a film that once defined an era. But when Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson walked into that studio together for the first time in years, the atmosphere shifted instantly. They weren't just two former co-stars. They were two people with a history that the world had never truly stopped talking about. From the moment they sat down, the tension was electric yet gentle, the kind of quiet connection that words could never fully capture. The interviewer smiled nervously and said what everyone was thinking. It's been 9 years since 50 Shades of Grey. Can you believe it? Jamie chuckled softly. 9 years, and somehow, it still feels like yesterday. Dakota looked at him, and for a second, it felt like time froze. That look, familiar, tender, unspoken, reignited every rumor, every theory, every hope that fans had carried for nearly a decade. What started as a professional reunion quickly became something much deeper. When asked about their chemistry on set, Dakota smiled but didn't answer right away. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "We were young," she said softly. "And maybe we were in love, but we just didn't know how to say it." The crowd in the studio gasped. Jamie looked at her, visibly moved, and said under his breath, "Maybe we did know. We just couldn't." That single exchange broke the internet. Within hours, the clip was everywhere, replayed, slowed down, dissected. Fans around the world lost their minds. After 9 years, they finally said it, one tweet read. "We knew it all along," said another. For years, people had speculated about what really happened between Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson during the filming of 50 Shades of Grey. Their chemistry had been undeniable, too intense, too real. Some said it was just good acting. Others were convinced it went beyond the screen. At the time, both denied everything. Jamie, newly married to musician Amelia Warner, kept his private life sacred. Dakota, fiercely independent, avoided gossip. They called each other close friends, and brushed off every rumor. But the way they looked at each other told a different story, one that words couldn't hide. Behind the scenes, crew members often spoke of their bond. They had this unspoken language, one recalled. They could make each other laugh with just a glance. You could tell there was something there, something they weren't ready to admit. Even after the trilogy ended, the connection never fully faded. Fans noticed how Jamie's tone changed whenever he mentioned Dakota in interviews, how Dakota's eyes softened whenever his name came up. Their friendship seemed to transcend distance, careers, and time itself. But as years passed, life took them in different directions. Jamie became a father, focusing on his family and dramatic film roles. Dakota continued to rise in Hollywood, balancing blockbusters with indie art films. They were rarely seen together, yet the internet never stopped linking their names. Until now. 9 years later, sitting side by side again, their walls finally seemed to fall away. In another moment of honesty, Jamie admitted, "We went through something that no one else could really understand. We shared pieces of ourselves we didn't even know existed." Dakota nodded quietly. "It was real," she said. "Everything you saw, it wasn't just acting. It was us." The interviewer, visibly emotional, asked if they had ever talked about it before now. Jamie shook his head. "No, we both chose silence. Maybe we thought it would protect us, or other people. But I guess love doesn't disappear just because you stop talking about it." The confession hit like a tidal wave. The studio fell silent. Even the crew stopped moving. For the first time, Jamie and Dakota weren't hiding behind characters or scripts. They were simply two people acknowledging the truth they'd buried for almost a decade. The moment the interview aired, social media exploded. Hashtags like #Jamie and Dakota in love, #after 9 years, and #we knew it dominated every platform. Fans posted side-by-side clips of their on-screen moments and their new interview, proving how the emotions had always been real. One viral comment summed up what everyone was feeling. 9 years of denial, and it still feels like they never stopped loving each other. Meanwhile, entertainment outlets scrambled for exclusive statements, but but neither Jamie nor Dakota said another word. They didn't need to. Their eyes had already spoken the truth, the kind that doesn't fade, no matter how much time passes. As one journalist wrote in awe, "They didn't confess to start something new, they confessed to honor what was always there." And as the cameras faded to black, Jamie reached over and gently touched Dakota's hand, not dramatically, not for show, but as if to say, "We finally said it." For the millions watching, it wasn't just an interview. It was closure. It was revelation. It was love. 9 years in the making. The morning after the interview aired, the world woke up to chaos, beautiful, emotional chaos. Every major entertainment outlet carried the same headline. After 9 years of silence, Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson finally confessed the truth. Clips of the two holding hands at the end of the interview flooded every social platform. Fans cried, cheered, and wrote messages as if witnessing the ending of a real-life love story they had believed in since 50 Shades of Grey. But beyond the excitement, there was also silence, the heavy, complicated kind that comes after the truth finally escapes. Neither Jamie nor Dakota gave follow-up interviews. They didn't post anything online. Instead, they both vanished from the spotlight, letting the world keep guessing. Insiders said their phones didn't stop ringing. Studios wanted comments. Journalists demanded exclusives. But both of them chose the same response: silence. One source close to Jamie revealed, he was emotional that night. He didn't plan to say those things, it just came out. But he's not sorry. He told me, "It's been 9 years. I don't want to hide what we were anymore." For Dakota, the revelation was both freeing and terrifying. She'd always known their connection was different, but saying it out loud, on camera, had stirred up feelings she thought she'd buried. In a private moment shared with a friend, she admitted, "It feels like we opened a door that was never really closed." Meanwhile, the world speculated endlessly. Talk shows called it Hollywood's most romantic confession. Commentators debated whether it was love or nostalgia. But to those who had watched them for years, it didn't matter. The way they looked at each other said enough. Jamie's wife, Amelia Warner, was asked about it days later while attending a charity event in London. Her response was measured but poignant. "Jamie is a man with a big heart. I think everyone saw a piece of his past, not his present." It was a statement that carried grace and pain. Chris Martin, Dakota's longtime partner, didn't comment publicly either. But one source close to him said he was not surprised. He always knew Dakota carried that chapter with her, the source explained. "You don't fake that kind of connection. It never really leaves you." And yet, even with all eyes on them, Jamie and Dakota seemed unbothered by the storm. Days later, paparazzi caught them walking together in New York, wearing sunglasses and quiet smiles. No handlers, no publicists, just two people sharing a quiet moment away from the world that had turned their love story into legend. When a reporter shouted, "Are you two back together?" Jamie simply smiled and said, "Maybe we never really stopped." That clip, lasting only 3 seconds, reignited everything. Fans flooded the internet again with hashtags. #ForeverJamie and Dakota. #Love after 9 years. One fan comment read, "It's not about starting over. It's about finding each other again after pretending not to care." Behind closed doors, however, things weren't as simple. Friends revealed that both were still processing the weight of what they had admitted. They spent years trying to convince themselves it was just friendship, one source said. But when they finally spoke the truth, it hit them both how real it always was. In a quiet interview weeks later, Jamie was asked one final question by a journalist. "What does love mean to you now?" He paused, smiled faintly, and said, "It's not always loud. Sometimes it's the thing that survives even when everything else fades." Fans instantly knew he was talking about Dakota. Dakota, in turn, appeared on a magazine cover not long after. When asked about her 9-year bond with Jamie, she didn't deny it. Her words were soft, almost poetic. "Some people come into your life to teach you love, and they never really leave. even when they're gone." That quote became one of the most shared sentences of the year. People called it the most beautiful way to describe unfinished love. By then, the chaos had settled. No more rumors, no more shouting. Just quiet acceptance. The world no longer demanded answers, it already had them. Jamie and Dakota were never officially back together, but the world didn't need labels anymore. What they shared had outgrown the definitions of Hollywood romance. It had become something timeless, an emotional truth that existed between them, whether or not they ever spoke it again. Months later, at a film festival in Venice, they crossed paths once more. Cameras captured a moment that spoke louder than words. Jamie standing behind Dakota, both smiling softly as they greeted fans. Their hands brushed for half a second. And in that fleeting touch, the story of 9 years, of silence, denial, and love, found its perfect ending. Because sometimes, the greatest confessions don't lead to beginnings or endings. They simply remind the world that some hearts never stop recognizing each other. As one headline beautifully put it the next morning, Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson, a love that never needed a label.